Good morning, everybody, and thanks for taking the time to be here. We wanted to bring in the 2016 Fox NASCAR broadcast team. Obviously, most of these guys you know, but I wanted to introduce Barry Landis on the far left. He's our race producer. This is his 10th Daytona 500. He kind of is the ringleader for this group. And then just point out a couple more things here. This will be the 16th year that Darrell, Mike, and Larry have been together on this, the 13th Daytona 500. And between Darrell and Larry and Jeff, you're looking at 7 championships and 200 race wins. Well, I wanted to start out with just one question before I turn it over to you guys. Barry, obviously, after our team's been together for 15 years, the chemistry is there. There's a comfort level there. Just by adding one player, adding Jeff and someone of his magnitude, what was kind of the goal when you brought this team together, and how do you keep that chemistry working, and how do you feel after the first weekend?
Well, the last answer first, how do I feel after the first weekend? I feel good about it. I thought that we hit the ground running. It wasn't a huge concern bringing in Jeff because having worked with these guys for 16 years, they are the ultimate team players. So it wasn't anything that we were nervous about. We certainly know plenty about Jeff. As a matter of fact, we know more about him than the other way around, and he's figuring that out as we go along. We weren't concerned with it at all, really, because we spent some time in the off season, threw in a little bit of a rehearsal, had some good just hang time. And I think at the end of the day, everybody's agenda with this group is to entertain and bring the race home to the best of their ability. And so when you have that kind of goal, egos don't get in the way. I mean, I don't know how much time you guys have spent with any of these guys on the panel, but it's amazing to me, given what they've accomplished over the years, that they really are egoless, which is fantastic. And so to answer your question, the chemistry was almost instant, and it's only going to continue to build. It's nothing that we have to work extremely hard at because, like I said, at the end of the day, everybody wants to, they all love the sport, and everybody wants to share that passion with people at home. So it's not a real painstaking thing to do. Now, as far as playing off of each other, all that kind of stuff, we're off to a great start, and I think it's only going to get better once we get a few races under our belt, or actually practices. I think we'll be fine for Sunday. Looking forward to it.
Jeff, we talked just briefly here before you went up there, and we've had several questions already about how you feel after the first weekend and how much you kind of learned about what goes on behind the scenes with TV and how you're adjusting to that.
Well, it feels really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. Certainly, from the rehearsal that we did to what we've been doing down here in Daytona, that's a lot to take in. I don't think anyone, certainly the other drivers and competitors, have really no idea just how much goes into these broadcasts, and that's been the most impressive part to me. I feel like I moved from an elite race team to an elite broadcast team because it's so similar in the way and how they prepare information that's being gathered, everybody's idea sharing. There's just all these different departments that are bringing all these unique things together to then bring it to the fans, and it's quite an overwhelming undertaking, but it's really impressive to be a part of, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. I've had a lot of fun. I think, for me, the first weekend, at times, I just need to almost calm myself down. I get so excited of seeing, like Saturday night, the Unlimited. I was so excited about what was going on there. I'm putting myself in the driver's seat, and as Darrell told me, I would experience, when you see it from that angle and that perspective, you're like, these guys are crazy. And it's hard to believe that I was doing that as a driver, but at the same time, thinking through as a competitor what you can do to make a pass or what you're thinking when you're in the middle of a 3-wide pack. Got me really pumped up and excited. So, there's a whole flow to it. There's so much. I mean, Mike is really the one in control of how it flows and moving, and he does such an amazing job. But I have so much to learn, and so I had a great weekend. And each time I feel like I'm getting more comfortable in understanding how the mechanics of the broadcast work. So I know, when to come in, when not to come in, how to complement what is already a great team.
Thank you. I have questions for Darrell and Larry and Mike also, but I wanted to open up really quick and see if anybody had a question from the floor before I went on. Kenny? They're bringing you a mic.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. For Mike and Darrell and Larry, I just wonder, how do you grade Jeff after his first weekend?
Oh, it's a gentleman's C,
See, I love it. He wants to make sure I know that I have a lot to learn to improve on.
On enthusiasm, A+. On effort and preparation, A+. We don't worry about the mechanics of broadcasting because we didn't hire him to be a professional broadcaster. We have a couple of those on staff. We want his knowledge and his enthusiasm, and I think already the short answer is we're getting a lot more than we bargained for.
Yeah, I think for me, I've watched Jeff for the last 16 years as a competitor, and so I've seen him at his best, and a couple of times I've seen him at his worst. So, and you have an impression of someone, even though we're roaming the garage area or we run into each other in a coach lot, you still have an impression of someone, what that person's like. And so my vision of Jeff was as a competitor. And we never were like buds. We didn't hang out together or anything. So it's been a great experience to see the other side. I don't know if it's the right way to put it or not, but a softer side where you're not in competition.
Come on, Darrell, he's the son you never had.
Well, no, I'm getting to that. I'm going to tell you why.
I was just glad he said only a couple of bad moments.
Well, the ones that I remember. But here's how I look at this. You know how Bill Elliott is helping Chase? I mean, Chase is an incredibly talented race car driver, but his dad is right there to help him with things that maybe the blind obvious sometimes, things that he's not aware of. And so that's almost like how I feel about Jeff. We can learn off of each other. His enthusiasm is contagious. I thought I was jacked up. I thought I was come down here, drinking a couple of Mountain Dews and vibrating out of my shoes until I run into him. And then I realized, but his focus and how he looks at things, and he asks a lot of questions, which is great. And sometimes he asks a question, I say, I can't believe you don't know that. But then I remember he's a rookie. He doesn't know that. So it's been a real good awakening for me. I think I'm going to gain as much from this as he is. I think standing beside him and what he sees and what he says really helps me think about things in a different perspective, and maybe I've thought about them before. So I'm loving what we're doing. I think we're only going to get better. The chemistry just continues to grow. We get to know each other on a personal level, on the competition level, and so I just think great teammate. Looking forward to it.
As you can tell, the challenge is going to be getting the commercials in. We like to talk.
Now, I think that I could have went ahead and wrote Jeff's grade in before we ever came down here, because getting to know him over the last few months, and the one thing I inducted him into the Rotary Hall of Fame the other night, and the one thing that I said in my closing remark, I never really got to know Jeff that well throughout the years of racing against him and talking about him. But getting to know him over the last few months, it absolutely makes sense why he's been as successful that he is. And he's latched onto the Fox philosophy real quickly, and that's that we tell the story, we explain why, but most importantly, have fun. The philosophy of the three of us for the last 15 years is, you know what, we're like three guys sitting on a couch, watching a race, having fun, and talking about it. And now we've just added another member to our couch, and it's almost been seamless. When Eric Shanks, our boss, called me in May and was telling me the vision he had of what he wanted to do, and then he started wanting to explain it, I said, Eric, time out. If you can hire Jeff Gordon to be a part of our broadcast team, that is a no-brainer. He's in a race car right now very competitively. We didn't even know at that point he was going to go all the way to the Championship 4. He brings a lot of credibility, and you know what? At the end of the day, he's just a good guy, and it's been almost seamless. Even though my whole application of the broadcast has changed, it doesn't feel that different.
Great. We have another question here.
I'm sorry it's not on topic of the broadcast group, but I'd like to ask Darrell, Jeff, and Larry, in your experience as Daytona 500 winners, what is this weekend's winner going to experience Monday morning?
One of the things I thought about this race and what separates it from all the others, other than the fact that it's a terrible analogy as far as I'm concerned, but it is like the Super Bowl. But when you win this race and you walk out of here Sunday, you're the Daytona 500 champion. I don't know if there's not too many other races that I know of that you walk out of where you won the race, you're the race winner. But when you leave here, you're the Daytona 500 champion. And that alone sets it apart. And then the magnitude, there'll be more eyeballs watch this race Sunday than will watch any other race all year long. So from an exposure standpoint of view, a prestige standpoint of view, an iconic event at this incredible speedway, there's no other race like it. So when you walk out of here with that trophy and you are on TV Monday morning, there's a sense of pride that you won't have any other time all year long.
You know, I just to add to DW, as a team, we approach this week as a championship. It's almost like it's its own small championship. You come down here, you've prepared for months, focus on this race car or a couple of race cars that you bring down here if you're in the Unlimited, and every time you're on track, it's about how can you get yourself in a position and ready and prepared to win the Daytona 500 on Sunday. And it's such a hard race to win. I won this race 3 times, and I have no idea how, because I hadn't won it since 2005, and over that amount of time I realized, wow, this is one of the most difficult races that there is to win. But there's no doubt it's the most prestigious, and I can tell you on Monday, you're a little bit tired from celebrating all night, but you are in for one heck of a whirlwind of a media tour and celebration to continue. I almost feel like we need a week off after the Daytona 500, just so from the media standpoint and from the exhaustion standpoint that you know, NASCAR, the teams and the sponsors can really take advantage of everything that comes along with being the Daytona 500 champion.
Yeah, and obviously being fortunate enough to win it twice as a crew chief, I can reflect on both of those weekends, even though one was 23 years ago and one was 18 years ago, and I can almost remember every moment. But I will say it didn't really set in. I remember winning the 500 with Dale Sr. in '98. A lot of inspection process. I was sweating bullets the whole time, even though I felt like there wouldn't be any problems. But I know it didn't really set into me till I got back to the motor coach by myself about midnight and bent down to untie my shoes, and I raised up and I said, son of a gun, we just won this Daytona 500. But, you know, to win a race in Sprint Cup, to me, is the hardest thing to do in all of motorsports. I don't care what open wheel series to win a Cup race, but I think the biggest thing with this race, even though I said 18 and 23 years since my win, anytime I go do a speech or an appearance, they don't introduce me as the 1995 Pocono winning crew chief Larry McReynolds. It's the 2-time Daytona 500 winning crew chief. So it stays with you not only the rest of your career, but quite honestly, what I've seen the rest of your life.
Thank you. We're going to take one call from the phone right now. Lisa?
Thank you, sir. As a reminder, everyone, that is *1 to ask a question. And our question comes from Neil Best with Newsgate.
Yeah, this is for Jeff. You know, no matter how great a player is, you know, usually you sort of call a Super Bowl after years of broadcast experience. So is it kind of scary doing the Super Bowl of your sport with basically 1 week of experience under your belt, or is it something that you feel kind of cool about?
Well, I'm excited about it, but I'm terrified. I'm going to try my best not to show it. I will say that luckily we are down here for 9 days. You know, we had Friday of practice, and we had Saturday practice, Saturday night race, Sunday qualifying, then Wednesday practice. Thursday we're going to have another practice and a race tonight. So luckily we get 2 races under our belt. Plus qualifying is sort of like a mini race. Right. Every time I've done that, I've gotten more comfortable. But there's no doubt when that day comes, just like when you wake up the morning of the Daytona 500 as a driver, there's a switch that goes off of this is a huge day, a huge moment. And as a competitor, I can't wait to go out there and compete, but don't mess it up. And that's exactly the same way I'm going to approach the booth on Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Bob Pockruss?
Bob Pockris, ESPN. This is mainly for Jeff. When we talked to Joey Logano about last year, he says that having beer cans thrown at him after Talladega, he almost took it as a compliment because he felt like the only person who else had beer cans thrown at him was you after a race. So I'm curious, do you see any similarities, and should he be concerned about fan perception as well? And if Darrell wants to take a crack at that, that'd be good too. Thank you.
Well, he's on the radar screen, that's for sure. People are talking about him. People are looking at him and anxious to see how he handles his situation. I think every situation's sort of different. I took a lot of pride in being booed because I was either beating Dale Earnhardt Sr. or beating Dale Earnhardt Jr. I like those options. Those are that's a pretty good deal, and it helped me grow. But at the same time, you're always wondering why. Why would somebody boo you? And you don't want anybody to boo you. You want to be liked by everybody. But if you're out there winning races, and people are showing their loyalty to maybe their driver or their manufacturer or whatever it may be, it's easier to take that when there's something where an incident happens and they're maybe judging you off of the way you reacted, how you handled it, how you didn't handle it. I think that's a little bit tougher. And I think it's a great test for Joe. I think he's a great competitor, and he's a heck of a star in our sport, but he definitely has a big test ahead of him, how he handles it moving forward.
Yeah, I've had chicken bones and beer cans thrown at me, and no one has ever sent me flowers after a win. So it's something you dread. It's just as Jeff said, you want everybody to be excited about any race you win, whether it was a race at Nashville, Wilkesboro, Martinsville, or Daytona. You wanted everybody to embrace that just like you and your team did. So it hurts, and most drivers, I think, they kind of cover it up as if it's no big deal. Oh, it's an honor. It's not. I'll just tell you the honest truth. I've been there. I've done it. It's not an honor. You hate it, and you can't wait for it to go away, and something will happen in your career, and it will go away. It'll turn. Some other young gun will come along, and he will take the heat, and you'll become the hero, and you just have to ride it out.
Dave.
Dave Coleman, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Jeff, can you describe the difference or the feeling you have when you're a 20-year-old rookie to what it's like to be a more experienced person in life in general, as a 40-something rookie?
Yeah, I think I definitely have more experiences under my belt, more confidence, more understanding of who I am and what I want out of life and how I want to approach it, or experience of the things that I've done well and how I got there or how I accomplished that. And so it gives me a whole new attitude of work ethic and respect for those that I'm going to be working for. It's not about me. It's about all of us working together to make a great product out there. And that's what I noticed as a competitor in my last years as a driver, was putting more effort into the team. And I think when I was a rookie, I came in thinking, yeah, they hired me. Can I do this? And then I did do it, and I said, yeah, that was me. And maybe that was just my way of going about it. But I learned a lot over the years to focus more on just being a part of the team instead of thinking I was the team.
Yeah, I think we were a 3-car team, and then our boss calls up and said we're going to add a fourth team to the mix. And we're all looking at each other, well, do you think that's a good idea? And they said, no, it's going to make us better. And I think if taking the Gibbs analogy, I think adding a fourth team over there made them better. And I think adding Jeff to our group is going to make us better. Just like he transcended, just like when he came into the sport, he brought a young crowd with him, young people that eyeballs that hadn't watched this before, and they were technology that we hadn't utilized before. He helped kind of bridge that gap. And I think in the TV booth, he's going to do the same thing. He's a young man, and he has a lot of fans, and I think he's going to help bring some new folks to the telecast.
You go right here with the.
David Swope, ESPN Radio Albuquerque. It's actually kind of a question for the panel. Today being the 15th anniversary of losing Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the date, is there going to be anything in the broadcast that's going to, kind of commemorate that and kind of talk about maybe where the sport has gone since the period of time, specifically with safety?
We have an update on safety improvements at the track that's in the telecast. We're working on a pre-race piece that will talk about turn 4, and that may be a mention in the piece. But is there a remembrance, a memorial, or something planned? No. My preference, and I've said this when people have asked on Twitter, I like to remember people's birthdays. I don't really like to remember things like that. And you want to remember the person. You see that 3 go around the track, you think of Dale Earnhardt, I'm all for that.
Yeah, we all have our memories. That was our first race. I could relive it every moment of that 2001 Daytona 500 all over again. And in the telecast, there will be mentions of that day many, many times because of the impact it had on our sport and on all of us. We lost a friend, we lost an icon, we lost a great representative for our sport, and his memory lives on and on and on. Even if we're not in Daytona, we talk about February the 18th. 2001. That's just something that will naturally fit right in, probably more than once on Sunday.
Yeah, Jeff obviously had a friendship with Dale and raced against him for a number of years. Darrell, a good friend, and drove for him, and I was fortunate enough to be able to work with him. And honestly, there's not a day that I'm at the racetrack, and most days that I'm not at the track, that I don't think about Dale Earnhardt in some shape, form, or fashion. But I guess to look now, 15 years later, speaking also as a dad that has a son that races, to know where we've come in those 15 years. And I know 15 years is really a long time, but would we be where we're at today with safety of the race cars and the racetracks had that not happened? I don't know. I guess we don't have that crystal ball that will tell us, but to look today with where we're at with seat technology, car technology, the safer barriers, and the list just goes on. And it is a package deal. It's not just one thing that makes our drivers safer. I certainly think that unfortunately that day in February of 2001 has contributed a lot to where we're at today.
Anybody else in the room with a question? Nope, far side over there.
Joel Arquente, racingexperts.com. This is for Jeff. Now you actually have a new boss. Did you see your old boss, Mr. Hendrick, and did you say anything to him last week?
I kind of have 2 bosses, I guess. No, I definitely am always in contact with Rick. We were out at Barrett-Jackson together, and he's going to be a critic of mine and give me his honest opinion, and he's been very supportive so far. But he was definitely very excited to have that 24 car on the pole, even though I wasn't the driver of it.
Kenny?
Kenny Bruce, NASCAR.com again. For Jeff, Jimmy Johnson mentioned the other day seeing a picture of you on social media standing with Chase and Allen after Chase won the pole, and you were in street clothes, and he said he never thought he'd see that picture. What was that feeling like for you to be there with that group and not be the driver?
These guys can tell you when we were in the booth, it was just nothing but gleaming pride coming out of me. I was so proud of them. Being a part of this process of bringing Chase to that group, and Alan can tell you, we had meetings in March after a race, and we would be in a debrief talking about a race, and I'd say, hey, just a note, this is for Chase. Tell Chase at this part of the track, or if in this moment, he needs to think about this. So, we've been preparing for this for a long time, and I've been, 100% supportive. I think he's a great kid. I think he's going to be a superstar in this sport. I also know that there are 24 fans out there that were really on the fence about whether they should keep the 24 or not keep the 24. As soon as that car was on the pole, every one of those 24 fans were like, yes! And they were on board. But I think between the team and Chase, I was just so proud of them. I wanted to go down there and tell them what a great job they did. So I was happy that I was able to see them because the garage was closing. So I just got in there for about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, here's the back.
If there was one moment in these 10 days when I think Jeff got a lot wistful about not being in that car, it was as Chase and his crew were celebrating that pole.
Yeah, he turned to me, and this is the backstory. He turned to me and he looked at me with a really blank look on his face. He said, "Well, I guess it wasn't the driver." I said, "Welcome to TV, brother."
and it's somewhat, it's very true. I mean, all the cars were going out on the track on Friday, and I had no issues. When the 24 drove out there on Saturday to do the first 500 qualifying practice, that was a bigger moment, and it definitely. And Darrell told me that, watch, this moment's going to impact you, and I was waiting for it, and it was definitely there. And then when they won the pole, I mean, I was happy for them, but at the same time, I'm going, wow, okay, it's sinking in right now. I'm not going to be driving that car anymore.
We're gonna wrap up the question part of it. Most of the guys are going to be able to hang around and get some questions if you want to get some one-on-one time. Jeff's got a previous engagement he's got to get to. I want to wrap up just one last kind of question for Barry. Tell us what the perfect broadcast this Sunday would be to you.
No rain delay. That'd be a good start.
Yeah, sunshine, no rain delay. That'd be a start. Perfect broadcast. Well, I mean, this race historically is on the edge of your seat the entire time, so we're not worried about that. I personally don't like to push agendas as far as who I think the competitors should be coming to the finish line at the end, but just down to the wire. I got to watch what I say as far as who I'm thinking, but you all know the storylines. Come down to the wire, coming out of turn 4, and 2, 3, 4 cars have a shot. Doesn't get any better than that.
4 wide. 4 wide is what I'm hoping for coming to the line.
I think
up below the yellow.
I spent
It
a lot
won't be
of time.
4 wide at the start finish line if they are up for 4.
One upside, I spent a lot of time this week. I spent a whole day on Twitter as I was sitting watching the last 20 Daytona 500s, about the first 20 minutes of the setup and the last 10 minutes of each race. And you go back and watch. It's on YouTube, and it's been listed on Twitter. Just a link. The last 5 laps of the 1998 500, and how that broadcast team put together all the possible scenarios of what had happened, what could happen, what hadn't happened but might happen. If we could have a broadcast like that, I'd be really happy.
Thank you, gentlemen.